All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the podcast. And in today's episode, we've got two guests, one from ServiceNow and one from one of our partners, KeenStack. And we're going to talk about this world of medical referral management and how that world works and where it's going and how our partnership together helps really make that process sing and some of the future of that industry. And joining us is Drew Koerner. Drew, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role here at ServiceNow.
Thanks, Bobby. So I'm Drew Koerner. Again, I'm our healthcare CTO here at ServiceNow. I've been here creeping up on 8 years, primarily responsible for the overall roadmap and direction of what we're doing in the healthcare provider space. Previous to this was at VMware, did the same thing, built up their vertical, but arguably most importantly, worked at a hospital system here for about 10 years before that here in Northern Colorado. So thanks for having me.
And Elevsis, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at KeenStack and your role in this industry.
Yeah, so again, Elevsis Delgadio. I'm responsible for customer success at KeenStack. Before joining KeenStack, I spent the last 10 years at Banner Health, where I was responsible for infrastructure and operations and enterprise architecture. I was the vice president there. Then even prior to that, I was a senior director over digital platforms, which included things like Salesforce, ServiceNow, Azure Engineering. And then even prior to Banner, I spent a couple of years at Blue Cross Blue Shield. So really kind of have that payer provider experience under my belt.
Well, this is going to be great because this is a technical and yet a healthcare conversation. So these two unique backgrounds both of you have must be great to work with each other.
Yeah, and the funny thing is we were actually probably competitors back on the hospital side because Banner competed with UC Health, right? And now we're friends.
Walk us through this concept and where ServiceNow fits into this idea of medical referral management.
The healthcare vertical has been evolving over the last 5-6 years. So we started as what we call a deep vertical about 6 years ago. Shortly after I came, I actually used to work for a hospital system here in Colorado. You know, if you go back to my hospital days, if you look at some of the metrics, most hospitals in the world are running at negative margins right now, specifically here in the United States. But if you look specifically at referrals, leakage is a term we use pretty commonly where, you know, referrals are made outside of a hospital system. I think it's about 25% of the time, which at the end of the day reduces the hospital's annual revenue by about 20%. So if you look at some of the numbers specifically per doctor, they lose about between $821 and $971,000. And so if we can reduce that number, that's really what we're looking to do, is to keep these referrals inside the system so that the hospitals can continue to charge for the revenue as part of that process, right? Versus to a third-party external system. And so if you go back to the vertical, we've built a number of different solutions. What KeenStack has done is built on top of one of our products, so a healthcare data model where they have built the actual solution. So to me, it's the first real healthcare specific solution that we built out that affects the actual business and bottom line.
Wow, those numbers are pretty intense when you start thinking about it when it comes to healthcare and making this work out well. Elevsis, I want to come to you and just have you briefly talk to us about where KeenStack comes into this equation.
So again, my name is Elevsis. I'm responsible for customer success at KeenStack. But prior to joining KeenStack, I spent the last 10 years at Banner Health. One of the things, just kind of leading to what Drew was talking about, referral management was one of the things that I was working on while I was at Banner Health, and it's one of these unique areas where the impact to both patients, providers, and the health systems financially is pretty significant. In that, Drew talked a little bit about the financials that hit the health system itself around leakage, but then you think about the patient side of it, and there's so many patients that get lost in the referral management process. Not too long ago, my daughter really hurt her ankle jumping on a trampoline. Went to a primary care doctor, got a referral to have some imaging done and had it looked at. And it was like this black hole of, okay, so now what? Like, who's going to call me? When are they going to call me? When is someone going to reach out to me? When am I going to know if my insurance is going to improve this procedure? It's a daunting space. And people don't realize that these referrals are being sent out, but they're being worked so diligently by these staff and these health systems, but they're being inundated by tens of thousands of referrals. And how do they get to the ones that they need to get to that have the most impact for the patients? And it's such a challenging space. And then the providers want nothing more than to help their patients, but they're dealing with the same lack of information around where that referral went and who's going to respond to it first. So this really represents like a huge opportunity for not just ServiceNow, but also for really driving value for the patients.
Yeah, and Drew, I want to have you really talk to us on the number side of this and the data side of this. How does this um, problem start to become solvable?
If you look at some of the numbers that I mentioned earlier, like a lot of that is around the referrals and where those doctors are going. So I'll give you another personal example here too, right? So I actually sadly am about to need knee replacement, right? So has to start with my PCP, but per that process, in my insurance, right? Like I don't necessarily know where and when I should be as part of that process too, right? So my PCP then refers in network to a orthopedic surgeon who then will start the process to try to get me in and scheduled. Elevsis is going to talk about this as part of the solution, but basically there's a lot of requirements. A lot of times it's just the fax that comes across. Believe it or not, we still have a lot of faxes in healthcare. And so the format of a fax can be very different. So how that's ingested and worked, and even to determine when, I'm available or eligible for that surgery, the knee replacement, when it's going to happen, when it can be scheduled, all that still needs to be coordinated. And there's a handoff between the systems, right? And so, and part of this too is if you look at the bigger picture of this, hospitals are looking to grow in size because the bigger the system, the better insurance rates they can dictate, or the better rates they can dictate to the insurance companies, because the more people in their population, then the more they can actually say, hey, here's what we need to have as part of that process. So you'll see kind of even the culmination. I'm sure Levsy saw this back in his day where, my old CEO said, if you work to 4 billion in revenue as a system by 2025, then you're going to be the smaller fish getting eaten by the bigger fish, right? And so it's all about kind of revenue and keeping it in the system as part of that process, right?
ServiceNow is what, 90% of healthcare customers, or am I getting that number correct?
Yeah, so we're 92% of US providers are ServiceNow customers, right? Our origins are primarily in IT and IT service management. As we start to grow, we really want to start to look to optimize some of that work outside of IT, right? And so if you look at our core, we are a workflow automation engine, right? So anywhere there's a manual process, we want to look to digitize that. And this is a great example of what KeenStack is built out, right? And so and specifically, we want to align with the line of business, which is that patient care process. And so so this is a great use case. Again, we built a healthcare data model, which is HL7 Firebase, which is, basically the healthcareized version of the platform. So you can push and pull data into the platform based on those industry standards. What KeenStack has done is built on top of that data model, this referral management solution. So so really it's an evolution for us. Again, we started about 6 years ago, and with the intention of having our partners like KeenStack build out solutions like this. So
You hit on a good point that the workflow is so expansive for referral management. And when we started looking at it, given like the knowledge we had from past healthcare work, we wanted to hone in on where is the biggest bang for the buck. And you kind of mentioned it's the ingestion of the referral, because what really matters is how do you find the quality referrals in this huge pool of volume coming in so that they can get work fastly and then the appointments can get set. And so we started looking at, well, the fax referrals represent a huge volume of data that comes in, images that have to be transcribed into the EHR. You have to look for deduplication. You have to look for quality of the referral. Does it have all the appropriate documents associated with it that allow for the referral into that specialty? Someone has to look through all of these and ensure all of those pieces are put together. And then we start looking around some of the how health systems might have been solving that historically. Maybe they're looking at, using RPA, using, document ingestion tools, building custom apps, assembling all of these pieces of technology together to create a solution. But just in the stitching of it together, there's so much inefficiency and risk that's kind of pulled. And so when you think about, they already operate ServiceNow in their IT space, how do you apply the capabilities that ServiceNow has natively out of the box and really give them a singular platform to drive value all the way from the ingestion of the referral, whether it's through fax, a web form, or even over the phone, bring it together, make those decisions agentically by ensuring that all of the documentation is there, that the deduplication activities had occurred, and then putting into the EHR. So again, it really represents that core area where we saw that there was just a massive amount of inefficiency. and a huge opportunity to leverage what it's good at, right? Workflow automation to really drive value for a health system. So that's, I think you were kind of hitting the nail on the head with that.
If you take a little bit of a step back from this, one of the things we've kind of a new tagline is we don't automate care, we automate what gets in the way of care, right? And so what we really want to do is we want to stay way clear of the EMR and way clear of even an ERP, but like those systems of record we potentially need to interact with, right? So like this capability, again, there are components that would be contained within an Epic or a Cerner as part of this process, which I think Elevsis will touch on. But basically, we want to be that system. We can be the system of record. We want to be the system of record for IT, but we might need to interact with another system of record like an Epic or even a Workday as part of this process. But specific to this one, again, we just want to make those systems work better. And at the end of the day, it's like, how do we help automate this referral process, which again is very manual, still a lot of times is fax paper process. And then this is a great place where we can look to digitize that unstructured workflow, which is still pretty common inside of healthcare.
Anytime you think about paper and pen, that's where you start to get a little bit nervous as to making sure you're going to get everything accomplished. Elevsis, walk us through this, how this works from the point of here is what we found, here's where we're going to really solve these issues.
It's really, how do you make the EHRs work harder for you, and how do you leverage what they're good at, but also what ServiceNow is good at? Across a health system, you're going to have a lot of mix between the EHRs, whether it's Epic, Cerner. You're going to have different EMPI tools for patient identification, different eFax solutions that'll be out there in the marketplace, and different document management solutions. What the nice thing is, as through the referral process, all of this has to get orchestrated across all these technologies, which includes the relationship between the provider, patient, and the health system, as well, the referral coordinators. What ServiceNow does incredibly well is it helps orchestrate the work that occurs in these channels, not replacing them. It doesn't change what the EHR does with respect to the referrals, but it can help bring that orchestration that someone has to do manually today, brings it together into a platform that really combines the best of integration, also native app development capabilities, and allows you to move a referral from the point at which it's brought into the health system into the EHR faster and cleaner, right? All of the QA and the quality checks have been completed. So your referral coordination teams are only working items that matter, that are ready to go, and they're not having to sort through whether or not this is a good referral or a bad referral. That's been done up front. And that is time, value, and revenue back to the health system, and better patient satisfaction scores as well. So if you think about, your stars ratings and things like that, this is something that could definitely have an impact on that, as the referral process is the start of your patient experience, which kind of makes its way all the way down into how patients might rate the way they experienced healthcare service from your health system.
This is still a business, and this is about customer service as well as customer care. We forget that those two things are separate but equally important. When you're looking at something like this and looking at the referral management and where you can come in and automate these things, where does it come into bringing in a faster way of doing things?
Well, this is how we did it. We used the ServiceNow Doc Intelligence platform, which uses AI, not OCR. And that's a big difference because, again, it doesn't require structured documents to be able to ingest the data on a referral, recognize what that data element is. We use the HCLS data model. So once we bring the data in, we say, okay, this is the referring provider, this is the patient. We're able to extract the condition, looking at all the supporting document and say, oh, are there notations around the x-ray, blood pressure, lab information? Is all of that contained within the referral? And we're able to put that data into the ServiceNow platform. And then the best part is now we can use the AI skills that are native to ServiceNow to say, okay, these are all the components that we brought in from the referral. Does this meet the criteria that the health system has set for this specific referral type? So if it's a cardiologist referral or an orthopedic referral, okay, what are the criteria that we simply use the knowledge base that ServiceNow already provides to basically set that criteria, bounce it up against what was brought in and say, this meets all of the appropriate criteria. Let's move this into the next step of the workflow. And again, from there, you can add layers of skills depending on what you need. One might be, let's say, we want to run an initial eligibility transaction at 270, 271, because why have someone look at the referral if they don't even accept the insurance that is coming in on this one? That could be a quick quality check, a quick sanity check before you have a referral coordinator take a look at that. Or if it's missing a component, how do we send a message back to the referring provider to say, hey, you missed this element? Or maybe it got sent in twice. Maybe there's duplicates. Maybe it was an imaging referral and it got sent in twice for whatever reason. You want to consolidate those and not create the chaos downstream when you have two of these sitting in the EHR that referral coordinators are having to take their time and manage. So we kind of use the ServiceNow platform, that technology that's already there and available to the health systems from what they've procured, and really just made it work in this specific use case. I think if you heard what I was navigating through, like how I was walking through the process, you might be thinking of 10 other processes that you may have that you could just take this exact same technology and say, man, I got a ton of documentation that I need to ingest, put into a data model, and make a decision off of agentically. So I'm glad you have a referral management solution here, but I need it somewhere else. But that's exactly what this was intended to be.
I love the analogy that I heard not too long ago is there's basically not enough people inside of nursing school and medical school to provide care. So the only way to do this is through automation, right? And so if I had a digital agent or a worker to go out and do this work and make the decision for me so that all I have to do as the human is go say yes or no, that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And so back to Alexi's point, you know, the referral management can be a very complex process within the hospitals where it varies sometimes even between between practices. There's policies and procedures that sit there potentially even between states. And so what we do in the back end once it's on the platform is to say, okay, what are those criteria? And what more importantly, sometimes is the order that of importance there, right? So location, availability, all these types of things, the agentic AI can go out and make the recommendation based on all that data and what's being requested, so that all that end user worker has to do is say, yes, that makes sense. I need to be referred to, UC Health, orthopedic surgeon in Northern Colorado as part of that process. And so without having to do all the work to sift through, see who's available, all those different pieces, right? So it's a great solution that they've built out.
I think the unique thing is that leveraging a ServiceNow platform that already has a BAA, already has an MSA, it's already been approved and validated by your security organization. Using that technology that's already ingrained in your operation and is there, it's healthy, it's secure, but then using that to solve a business problem prevents you from having to bring in another product or solution that prevents more applications in your environment, more risk. I mean, those are the things that we have to be concerned with nowadays. And I think exploring the ServiceNow as a highly valuable business solution really starts to make a lot of difference when you start comparing the risk associated with bringing other point SaaS solutions into your enterprise. And I think that's what makes a marked difference. Plus, if you think about it, a lot of SaaS solutions are one size fits all. They have 20, 30 other customers that are all driving product roadmap. The one thing that's unique about ServiceNow is that's your ServiceNow environment. If you need to have something unique in your workflow that no one else is doing other than you, that is something that's easily configurable for your health system versus having to conform to some other vendors and other products roadmap. And I think that's why I'm really passionate about using ServiceNow to help solve some of these business problems.
Yeah, I think just to add a tiny bit to that, most of the time when I go talk to a customer, they're trying to consolidate platforms, right? So having 4 or 5 main strategic vendors, whether it's us, Microsoft, Epic, Workday, et cetera, right? And so to Elevsis' point, like if you actually can leverage, most likely already an existing ServiceNow customer, we assume you're going to have PHI on the platform, so we'll have BAAs in place as well. So, and for most of the time, if you look at just the state of the industry, like most of the time these solutions have to have a sub 12-month ROI. This one has a great ROI to it where you can actually show value right away just by reducing that referral time, right? So
Yeah, I mean, you started off the conversation talking about leakage. If the average health system is dealing between 55 to 60% leakage, and let's just say the average referral value is worth several $1,000s, moving the needle by 1%, right, means millions. And so if you think about it, if you can go in and say, no longer our referral management team that's already just drowning in referrals today doesn't have to do the upfront quality check, right? What's being dropped into the EHR, through HL7 messaging, right, is clean. It's the work that we actually need to focus on and prioritize. Well, that's a path to realizing that 1%, 2%, millions of dollars of revenue for your enterprise. Plus, you didn't have to bring a new solution into your environment. Your risk profile stays flat. And again, you've started to leverage existing technology, existing platforms to drive business value, not just IT workflow. And I think that's, for me, it's an all around game changer. But like I said, I mean, seeing is believing.
Well, that's a great way to look at that, Elevsis. And I want to ask you now, what's this roadmap for KeenStack look like? Where are we headed? What are some big phases that you're starting to focus on?
Where we're focusing on more out of the box integrations with those systems that have to be orchestrated. So if you think about Epic, the document management systems, the EFAC systems, granted, every health system can integrate them themselves, or we can provide that as a service, being that we're a partner. But we felt like the more out of the box that's already there, that's baked into the solution, that's the less pro service that you need to actually get it done. So if you have minimal resources that support your Epic environment or your Cerner environment, the idea is take the product out of the box and it already has an integration model to feed the referrals into your EHR without having to even invest in a pro services company. So I can't emphasize the importance of the referral volumes aren't just for health systems. A lot of post-acute organizations, have a tremendous amount of referral volume that comes in that they have to navigate through. So this is not something that we looked or designed bespoke to large enterprise health systems. This same product or service will work for any type of organization that is ingesting a referral, particularly the post-acute space. So physical therapy, you can think about that, mental health services, home care. These are all things that I think are really important that a lot of referral volume comes in. And I think those are areas where this product also lends itself to providing value.
So there you have it, a little insight into the world of referral management, AI, and the partnership between ServiceNow and KeenStack. I want to thank our guests for joining us today, Drew Koerner from ServiceNow and Elevsis Delgadio from KeenStack. And if you have any questions about what you heard about today or looking to gain some more insights, check the show notes below, as well as there are some great links to some upcoming events in the near future. I'm your host, Bobby Brill. Thanks for listening.